When I was in the service, I enlisted in 1948 to avoid the draft, which a few of my friends did, and well, maybe this is part of the story to get there. But a friend by the name of Herb Johnson thought we ought to do this. So 4 of us went down to enlist, and Herb Johnson failed and stayed home. And we all waved goodbye to him as we went in the service. Well, I went to the Corps of Engineers after basic training, and I ended up in the Philippine Islands. And I was there for over 2 years. In 1951, the Philippine Islands, there's over 7,000 islands in the Philippines. The U.S. Coast and Geodetic Survey had done some surveys, but during the war they found that a lot of them were inaccurate, and we were there to resurvey. I was a geodetic computer. There were no real computers in 1951. So that led one thing, and while we were there, out of our base camp in Cavite, which is in Manila Harbor, there was a group of people came into our facility there, and were asking for volunteers to be in a movie. Well, it was nice to get a little time off from whatever your normal procedures are, and you don't enlist to or volunteer too much in the Army, but I thought that would be a good idea, and it turned out that they were making a movie about the guerrillas that when MacArthur left the Philippines, when the Japanese came in, there was a lot of U.S. military people who were left behind, and they joined up with the Filipino guerrillas, and that's how this movie, which was titled American Guerrilla in the Philippines. I volunteered to be the guerrilla, but it didn't work out that way. But anyway, so I volunteered to participate in this. The stars of that movie were Tyrone Power, Linda Christian, and Tommy Ewell. Those names you probably might remember. The younger people don't know those, I don't think, but we spent the whole day there, and I was paid $50, but it was an interesting experience because we saw them shoot the various scenes that they were doing. Several of our people that were in our group, our company, one of them, his name was Peterson. His father was the editor of the Cleveland Journal, and he was actually the fill-in for Tyrone Power on the scenes that were distant. I had a dramatic scene. It wasn't much, but I was there at the end of the film, and I was part of the return to the Philippines of General MacArthur. And the guy that came ashore at that time, they waded in, as you remember, maybe seeing some of those things. And then there was a big parade in a small barrio in the Philippines, and I was part of the group that was holding back the Filipinos and all the people that were there to celebrate that. The guy that played the part looked exactly like the General MacArthur. He had his pipe and he had his crushed hat, and anyway, that's part of my fame, I guess, in the Philippines. I had the opportunity. That movie was shown, and the movie was filmed in the early part of '51. The Korean War was going on, but I was still in the Philippines. It was shown at Jamestown, and my mother and dad got free passes to the Dipson Theater, the Palace Theater, and there was a write-up in the paper and all that sort of things, but it was an interesting experience.
So you'll provide your autograph later on tonight when people ask?
Oh, I might. Later, see, we were surveying, making maps of the Philippines, and I did go to Tokyo later with some, I did all the geodetic, all the calculations, and we were remapping the Philippines, not all of them, but the ones that needed it. And I did have an opportunity to not meet General MacArthur, but I did salute him as he came out of the Daiichi building in Tokyo one time. And he looked just like the guy I saw coming ashore in the Philippines, so that was another experience.
Terrific. Let's give Ray a big hand.
I'll just tell you one little happy incident that's going to happen to me on Memorial Day weekend. As you know, Greg's oldest daughter, Amy, works for the Detroit Tigers. And Memorial Day, she's going to get married in Detroit. Well, this is exciting. She's marrying a Brazilian. And so she called me one day and she said, Grandma, I can hardly tell you this without laughing. She says, Grandma, I want you to be bridesmaid. No, flower girl. I want you to be flower girl at my wedding. I said, flower girl? And she said, yeah, isn't that hysterical? And so then I thought, okay, I'll look up on the internet how old flower girls should be. And so they have these questions and answers, you know. Is it okay if my 6-year-old is a flower girl? And then somebody said, my niece wants to be flower girl and she's 12 years old. And they said, that's a little old to be flower girl. So I thought, whoa. So maybe I should, Jeremy, my oldest grandson, said, Grandma, you're going to be in the Guinness World Book of Records. So I thought, okay, I'll research that. So I went on the internet and I put up Guinness World Book of Records, and I guess they have an office in London and New York and I don't know, Bangkok or somewhere. And so I typed in, what is their oldest flower girl? And I got a response, and they said they didn't have any category on that, but if I wanted to research it more, I could pay them $700 and they would check it out. Okay, that's my story.
But everybody knows how wonderful the Jackson Center is. So, you know, I was thinking, I maybe have another story to tell you. And I think it's probably because Sharon Hamilton, our Vice President of Senior Housing, her picture has been in the paper so many times because of being the Rotary President. And I thought, let's go back 25, 26 years ago. I received a call up at my office. The two gentlemen from the Optimist Club of Jamestown wanted to come up and speak with me, and I thought, they want to do something up here at the church, so that's what they're coming up to speak to me about. Well, Ed Shaline was one of the fellows, and I think John Kerr was the other fellow. And they came up, and I know I had heard some discussion about women becoming members of the men's service clubs, but I didn't think too much about it. Well, lo and behold, they came there, and they sat and talked to me, and they said they wanted me to be the first woman in a men's service club. And I was rather startled. I hemmed and hawed. I didn't know what to say to them. And so I really didn't give them an answer. I said, I'll have to think about it. Well, they were pretty coy. They had me as a guest once or twice. Then they invited me down to be the timekeeper for their oratorical contest. So this went over about a 6-month period. And so I finally said yes. However, someone, I can't remember if it was Jane Cleaver Becker, that was the first woman. She beat me out by about 2 weeks. But the Post-Journal had a big article about the two of us. And because it was a big thing, you know, women becoming members of men's service clubs. So, lo and behold, they called my husband, Gordon. He is the business manager up at the Bemis Schools. And he was a member of the Kiwanis Club. And they asked him how he felt about women becoming members of a men's service club. He said, oh, I'm against it. So here's this article in the paper, and it tells it says that my husband was against me becoming a member of the men's service club. But within 3 years, I was president, and I think I turned out to be an asset and to the club, and other women eventually were asked. And so I just thought that you know, it really delights me when I see Sharon's and some of the other women's picture in the paper, because that was something that evolved from over a 25-year period. So that's my story.
All right, good job.
Randy and I were good friends, Greg's brother. And I remember when Randy first started.
Put the mic up real close.
He was supposed to be a supervisor in our division, and I caught him in a snowball fight up in the bunker one day with a bunch of laborers. So I had to reprimand him a little bit, even though he was over me. But Randy and I became very good friends. I knew his family. We worked together a lot. I remember he would call down in the morning and say, "What do you got going today?" And I'd tell him. He says, "Well, that takes care of that. I don't need to worry about that." But one of the funniest things that I remember about Randy was we had a flood there one time, and I was on vacation. And the pump station was down along Casadega Creek. And when the water got high, it got into the building. So Randy come by the house about 4 o'clock in the afternoon, and he said, "Would you go down about 2 o'clock tonight and check the pump station, see how the water is?" Because it was on automatic at that time. We had a computer running it. And so I went over to the Buffalo Street station, and I got a dump truck, because I figured that's high enough, I can get through the water with it. Well, about 400 or 500 yards from the building, there's a railroad track that goes across, and water was all the way up to the railroad track, and I couldn't see where the road was. So I called the control room and told them to call Randy and meet me down there with a couple of pair of hip boots, because we got to walk in the siding, which was elevated. So we got in, and the water was up to our knees in the building, and there was a big pit that had the pumps in the bottom, about a 40-foot pit, and it looked like Niagara Falls was running around over the sides of that. And of course the pumps in the bottom in the basement couldn't handle the water, and we got some help down there and some portable pumps, and we saved the big electric pumps that pumped the water. But the funny part was the next day, a fellow named Mike Derrick, he was a supervisor over in the light plant, and him and Randy and I, we kind of worked together on things. And Randy was on the ground with Jim Gronquist. He was a head man over everything, and he was a little upset. And Mike and I were up in the truck, and we were shoveling sand into these sandbags and handing it down to him. And Jim, he looked over at Randy, and he says, "You're fired." And Mike, he looked at me, we're down there, and he said, don't laugh, he said. So, but Randy and I had a lot of good times. We were good friends. After I quit, he hired me to come build a family room for him. Jim Gronquist hired me to come and build a bathroom for his folks, and we had a good relationship with, those are good old days at the water station.
Tried our best.
And what was your slogan at Quality?
Friendly people, friendly prices.
There you go. It makes you warm and fuzzy today, I bet. And give me your best produce story.
Produce story.
I mean, like it didn't come on time, it was bad, something that really threw you off, or that maybe the readings may have called you on the carpet and said, "What's this all about?"
Well, I never really worked in the produce department.
All right, make it up then. Make up something else. Give me a funny incident, Randy.
I tried to stay out of trouble most of the time, so I really don't have too many stories to share about things. We had some interesting years. You might remember, you know, when opening the new store at the Chautauqua Mall in 1970. That was a real big deal, with a conveyor belt out front that was constantly a problem with somebody not getting the groceries they were supposed to have. I guess I'm pretty boring as far as an interview, as far as coming up with anything and everything. The thing that I remember the most, if those of you remember the little Quality Markets that was on Prendergast Avenue that is now Gear Done, that's where I started in 1969, was just a stock boy, and the first of the month, obviously the welfare checks came out, and there was quite a population that arrived at that point in time. And it's interesting how many of them wanted to steal. And probably that was probably the most interesting time with the number of people that tried to shoplift and the different situations that came up. I remember one day Dale Lundberg, you might know Dana Lundberg, Dale and Carolyn's son, who's a local attorney here. Dale was the store manager, and we had caught a young man that had taken a steak and put it down his pants. And I don't think we put that one back on the shelf. Anyways, we had him inside the store, and I was standing by the door, and Dale went over to call the police, and the kid made a bolt for it. And you don't know why, but at 19, 20 years old, I grabbed for him and grabbed onto his coat, and the next thing I know, we were rolling down the sidewalk. Dale's on the phone, looks down, and there's me rolling down the sidewalk with this guy. And there was quite a few stories like that over time. It was just surprising how people would, you know, how hard they would try to steal a can of tuna fish, you know. But not too interesting a story, I guess. Quality Markets was a great place to work. As I say, I tried to stay out of trouble and not get in trouble too much. So anything else you want to ask me that's more exciting than this?
How about your racing career?
Well, that's a piece probably you don't know is my grandfather was the chief mechanic for the Chautauqua County Highway Department back during the 50s and 60s. And he had a beautiful garage. We lived a mile from their home, and he spent a lot of time teaching us about automobiles and fixing vehicles. And so we got really interested in cars and tractors and trucks and State Line Speedway. We lived 5 miles from State Line. The first thing you know, we were going to State Line as kids. Well, we never really outgrew that. I had an opportunity when I was with Quality to actually sponsor a stock car at State Line for about 7 or 8 years. And probably one of the highlights for me when I think about the dirt track racing is my son Adam. When Adam got to be 15, 16 years old, we managed to hook up with one of the late model drivers by the name of Rod Malloy, and Adam and I did a little pit crew work for 3 or 4 years. And it was just a great experience for a father to be able to share something that I've always enjoyed, and that my son was starting to obviously enjoy too, and a teenage boy that got to change tires and you know, gas up a car, and we won some races, and that was probably the fun part. And I still enjoy that till today. I don't hang out there as much as I used to, and still watch that NASCAR stuff on Sundays, but that race car, that stock car piece is very much my #1 sport.
Terrific, great, thank you. A lot of things and met an amazing amount of people over your career. You must have one or two that you say, gee, did I ever tell you the story, Greg, about this guy?
You know, there was really nobody that impressive. But I'll think of something.
Okay.
You got another question?
We're sure. I could ask you about Ken Strickler. You could probably have a story about Ken, don't you?
I certainly could.
Yeah.
Probably one of the finest men that this town ever had. But in any event, Ken did so much in such a short period of time that I never will fail to be impressed by him. Next question.
You quickly, you were in banking, you were in varieties of business. Give me a quick Reader's Digest of your career.
Well, I started in an auto parts store, which was trying to put pieces together. That didn't work, so I went into banking. So I went to Marine Midland, and I asked them for a job. And I talked with a fellow named John DeVillers. And I said, well, I really would like to get into banking. I said, you know, I have been up the street, up to the First National Bank, and they wanted to pay me $50 a week I'm really looking for 55. And I said, how does that sound to you? He says, yeah, see Steve Christian, he'll talk to you. So I got hired, but for $5 a week. Then I was in the bank for about 20-some years, or 10, 15 years, and then I went up to Rutland, Vermont, and I thought, well, I'm going to escape this Jamestown banking season. And so I thought, this is what my salary limits are. The low point had to be $16,500. The guy says, look, I'll pay you $16,000. I said, well, wait, I got to have $16,500. I got a wife and 3 or 4 kids. He says, well, he says, I'll let you know. I never got the job in Rutland, Vermont. It was a red carpet bank. Beautiful. Well, anyway. Then from there I went to Marine Midland and, you know, in a whole bunch of banks. But be careful of the percentage. They talk about APR and all this stuff. Always take the highest rate, even if it doesn't pay. But anyway, but we had a great time. It's been a wonderful career. I have 4 children. My wife, as many of you know, has passed away. But, you know, it's been just an incredible career. To especially live in Jamestown all my life. Oh, if you don't understand how appreciative you should be of this town and what's here, it's incredible. You have people like Jim Roselli, oh, Russ Dietrich, Mr. Baseball, oh, unbelievable. I have 4 things that are great in my life right now. I have my oldest son, who's got a couple of boys, and he has a company that covers the whole mid-center of our country. And his son is going to take over his company soon, which is a great thrill. Then my daughter, she has 2 kids. One of them is probably involved in the most touching story in my life. And another fellow that's involved in this is Chuck Jackson. You know Chuck and his wife. Anyway, her oldest son, Susie's oldest son, is a Korean born, and he was adopted when he was 6 months old. And he is now going to graduate pre-med.
Wow. Very exciting. Thank you, Harry.
I've been doing housing since 1995. I have been managing on-campus housing since 1998. This used to be my backyard. I was brought up on Niagara Avenue, you know, which is 2 streets up, and Lutheran has expanded so that it has moved right up to Niagara Avenue, and it even bought and has since torn down the house that my date for the senior prom lived in. How about that? I remember going to school with the people that lived in the orphanage that was here. I'm telling you how old I am almost. They went to East Jamestown School with me, and this was my playground all in the back here before all of this was built. This was a farm back here, and I used to sit up on the bank and watch the boys skinny dip, the ones from the home. I think Tom Holt's the only one that knows that story, and I don't know, it slipped out one day, again after I had a glass of wine, I think.
So how was your prom?
How was my what?
Prom. I mean,
I can remember I wore a green dress and I danced a lot.
Okay. Great. And
yeah.
And the skinny dip, and the brook was where?
Yeah, right here, right behind all of where the newest duplexes are down that deep bank. There's a creek that runs along there. Yes, and like I say, the children from the orphanage used to play there too.
Okay.
So I only watch. That's all.
So you really, this is
This is my backyard.
Yeah.
Yes, I have not traveled far from home in my career. I have lived other places for short amounts of time, but always ended up back here. And I have to piggyback on what Harry's saying about Jamestown. I am guilty a lot of times of not taking advantage of all of the programs that exist here in town. But as a member of Rotary and currently serving as its president, we hear each week about all of the programs that exist in this community and that are going on. Some of them are fundraisers and some of them are just entertainment and good programming that comes to our community. I think we don't realize how lucky we are in this community, and I guess no one knows that better than you, Greg, because you promote baseball, and before you leave I wanted you to talk about baseball in Jamestown and what could be the future of baseball in Jamestown, or not. And with that I would encourage all of you, I'm going to fill in for Russ Dietrich, to buy season tickets, please, to the Jamestown Jammers this season, because we want to keep them here in our community, and that is something important. And in fact, speaking of the Jammers, it was my dad who taught me how to, when I was probably 9 years old and really skinny, to get through the fence so that I didn't have to pay the dime to get in.
So you were really one of the original knothole people.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. But I was one of the original watching those baseball games.
Okay. Yeah.
Yes.
Sharon, you look great. I bet you could almost do that now. I know I could not. So. Are we going to bring up Mary Lou now?
Yes, indeed. Mary Lou.
What can you tell me, as she comes up, what can you tell me about Mary Lou?
Mary Lou is a star. She is someone that I admired from a distance for a long time, as she was the community representative of Cummins, and I just thought that seemed like such a great job, and her picture was in the paper all of the time, or many times.
That's right. So Mary Lou, what's your best story about your husband?
Oh my gosh, I'd rather talk about Cummins.
I'd rather hear about Jim. So you must have a story. I mean, you've been married for how long?
Close to 57 years.
57 years.
And look the shape he's in. He got a Band-Aid in his face.
Yeah.
I didn't do it in spite of what he says.
So you must have a story or two. I mean, you can't have 57 years of totally wedded bliss.
Well, we have 5 wonderful children and 5 wonderful grandchildren, so got a lot to be proud of, that's for sure.
Yeah. So.
But I'd like to piggyback on Ray's story about different people that you meet.
Mm-hmm.
And as Sharon mentioned, I had the wonderful opportunity to work at Cummins Engine for 23 years. And the last 10, 15 years I did community work, and that's where I met Greg when he was on the Community Foundation as president, I believe, the year it came out. Well, you know our friend Craig Coburn. Well, one day I was at my desk and the phone rang, and it was Craig. And he said, Mary Lou, we have somebody coming to town, and they'd like to take a tour of one of the manufacturing facilities. Can you do something for them? And I said, sure. And it happened to be the mayor of Kosovo and his group. And that afternoon I was out of the plant, but we set everything up. And on the way home from the meeting that I was at, I ran into Wegmans, and who's coming up the parking lot but Craig Coburn and the mayor of Kosovo with his group. They were taking, from Cummins, they were taking them over to Wegmans to show them how we are fortunate enough to shop at a store like Wegmans. So, you know, everybody says, you know, you can meet everybody you know at Wegmans, and I met the mayor of Kosovo there, so that was really interesting.
Well, you had governors, you had a variety of people flow through Cummins. In fact, race car drivers, in fact. Come up and talk about NASCAR. You actually, Cummins had the car, and I think one of the drivers there.
A couple of years they had a big sponsorship with some of the drivers, and I don't have, sorry Randy, I don't happen to be a race fan, but some of the drivers were there with their cars, and of course all the people that worked on the floor up there were really thrilled because it's a big deal concert. And Cummins, of course, being in Columbus, Indiana, where their headquarters is just about 50 miles south of Indianapolis and the Speedway, and they sponsored many drivers through the years up there. So
If I asked Jim to come up here, what would he say about you?
I'd be afraid to find out.
Well, let's find out. Jim, why don't you come on up? Jim, come on up. You might want to tell the story about the Band-Aid. I mean, it might be related.
Well, it was pretty quick. I've always been a sucker for a left hook.
Yep.
And
You're going to have to put the mic a little bit closer.
Mary Lou told me, she said, well, I thought she said, and she said, what she said was, shut up. I thought she said, stand up. And then she got angry.
Does that happen frequently?
No, it's the first time I ever caught a left hook.
So you've had 57, we just heard about 57 years of wedded bliss.
57 in June.
57 in June. And who's counting?
Mary Lou counts, but not real well.
Do you have a story, kind of a family story that you want to share, or something that might be a funny vignette?
The family thing I'll let go because they're all funny. But I will tell you one that happened in the plant. I worked for Cummins also, but I was inside. And we were having a big dog and pony show one day. And God and all the disciples were coming. And a friend of mine and I, we took one of the engines. And this was when they, who was the lady that had the cosmetic service or cosmetic business, and she awarded pink Cadillacs? Oh, yeah. Mary Kay. And so we took an engine and we painted it pink and took a couple pictures of it. And at that time, Jim Kelly, not the football Kelly, was the plant manager. So we took the pictures up to show him the new pink engine. And and this is like the day of the dog and pony show. And he got awfully excited. And he said, you get that out of here, but he used some rather strange language that I'd never heard. And so we did in fact get rid of the engine, but our whole theme at the moment was to see how excited he could get. He could get very excited.
But you survived.
We survived, absolutely. Well, his name was Kelly, I was Scully. What's he gonna do? So, no, family-wise, we've been lucky. Mary Lou has always done everything I've asked her to do. Yeah, you're right, that's worth laughing at.
Yeah. So is sunshine and lollipops.
Yeah.
This is terrific. All right, Jim, thank you.
You're welcome.
Because I really think I have lived here longer. Maybe Carolyn has lived longer than I.
41 years in June.
94.
41 in June.
Well, then Carolyn beat me there. But anyhow, I have to tell you some stories about the Ponderosa.
Yeah.
That your place where we all used to go and have so much fun. But the thing was, your mother was such a ringleader, and she said that anybody that came there had to ride a horse. Well, I had never ridden a horse in my life. And when I got up there, she got me on this horse, and evidently did you teach all those horses to go under the trees? I think that's what you did. And anyhow, I remember we had to ride snowmobiles, we had to ride the horses, we had to do everything, and both she and your father were such wonderful hosts and hostesses. But can I tell the story about what she told you guys on one April Fool's time about...
No, but tell them.
No, yes, shh. Yes.
Can I tell you,
Better you than me, I'm telling you at this point.
that you got the call that somebody had asked her to marry him.
Correct.
And, well, I guess it just disrupted the whole
group that she was going to get married and she was going to go on a cruise and everything else. And what did all the grandchildren do? They just looked up all these cruises and everything else and thought she was crazy, and then it turned out it was April Fool's. But Gladys has always been lots of fun, and your family has been a real part of my life. But the best part of my life, I think, has been down here.
That's very nice. Sharon, what that?
It's great to live here. I don't think I'd want to be anyplace else.
Give me your best Norm Burke story.
Well, Norm Burke came over to my apartment once, and he was going to have supper with us, and my sink had gotten plugged. So we couldn't get it unplugged. So Norm Burke goes over to the home, brings some stuff over, but Norm Burke could not get that unplugged. So the next day they had to get the plumber here, and they had to take the wall down. And the problem was in the apartment next door, not mine.
I'm surprised Norm didn't knock down the whole apartment.
No, he's not.
So you're here 41 years, so you've seen some changes. What are the changes you've seen?
Well, the first 3 apartments that were built, and then they kept building, and then they built Carlson Towers. When they built Carlson Towers, they dug a big hole. When they were digging there, they ran into all these skunks. And boy, what an odor we had for weeks. And then they built Brostrom, and then all the rest of the apartments. So.
I mean, this is a significant campus right now at Lutheran. And,
it's great.
GA home, what was that like when you first came here 41 years ago?
Oh, jeepers. It was just the old home at that time. And I know we had a small garden out there, and we could go out the back door of the old retirement home, and the residents had a small garden. I remember the children's home years ago, the basement. Every time we came in, you had to walk down these stairs and go into the basement, and there was always water down there for some reason. Well, we had water in our apartment over in here for years and years and years. Well, at last they got it fixed, so the water really runs around here.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed.
Yeah.
How long have you been down here?
3 years.
3 years. And what do you think about Lutherans?
Love it.
Generally.
Love it.
I mean, you like here, you might like here, but what about the people, the Lutherans?
Oh, beautiful. Love it. Love everybody here.
You've been
I love the idea of no more.
Yeah.
Shoveling snow,
taking
care of roofs, driveways. Beautiful.
What did you do in a prior life before you came down here?
Wow. I was director of admissions over here at JCC for 28 years. And before that, I worked at Case Western Reserve in the admissions office, at Case Institute, which then became Case Western Reserve. I was there for 5 years. 5 years. I was in the graduating from Jamestown with a number of people who are here, classmates. And then...
what class was that?
Class of 51.
51.
At Jamestown. And then went in the, worked a while, and then went in the service. A bunch of us decided we didn't want to get drafted, so there was 4 of us that enlisted in the Air Force. Ended up in February at Sampson in the middle of the winter up there. A nice place to be in the winter. And then, and then we left. We all went, 2 of us went out west to California. It was with a friend of mine who lived near you, John Dahl, who lived up on Allendale. Yep, we were friends for many years. And then I ended up having worked at the SAC headquarters in San Bernardino, and the call came in and said, okay, you're the low man. Here's the deal. You can either go to Korea or you can go to Africa. So I decided, okay, I'll go to Africa. It was only an 18-month stint, and I was in Rabat, the capital. It was beautiful. We had the chefs we had at the base were all French chefs, so it was ideal. It was small, and then we got transferred out to Sidi Slimane out in the desert, and that cut the tour down a little bit. So that was interesting. That was really interesting. I know I'd never been on a ship before, so we were leaving New Jersey from, what's the name of the base? I can't think of anyway. You know, I got seasick as it was sitting still, and I kind of hid. I hid for a couple of days so they couldn't catch us as far as doing any duty. So they finally caught up with us, but it was a nice trip over. I didn't take the ship back, I flew back.
Then you went into academia. So from what you got out, mustered out, you went into academia then?
Yep, I went to, I started at Grove City as a veteran, and that was a catastrophe. I was living in a room, now here you remember, I'm like 23 years old, and I'm in with an 18-year-old in the dorm at Grove City. It was terrible. So I said that was enough. I came back here, finished up at JCC, got married, and finished out, went out to Kent and finished there. And then got my job at Case. And then I was out traveling for admissions and happened to be traveling through this area, going through Jamestown, going down to Bradford and Olean, and going down to Binghamton. And I stopped by here, and the guy talked to Bill Schlifke, and he says, Jim, he says, you know, there's an opening here. And this was in, I forgot when it was, August or something like that. I said, well, give me some more information on it. So they interviewed me, and I left that day, and they offered me a job. But I can remember the first day I took the job at Case. And I think, Cynthia, you can check on me. What did I make, $2,300 a year? Yeah, $2,300 a year. This was in 56, something like that, 52. No, 62. Thought, gee whiz. Now, look at it now.
Yeah.
But my grandchildren always say, you were in the Korean War. What were you doing in French Morocco? But I do have a story about my brother when he was the bat boy for the Falcons, and this is in 1941. And he would always, and I think I've told you this before, they didn't have washing machines over here. And the bat boy was in charge of getting the towels all clean and all that kind of stuff. So my mom and dad were great fans. They'd come down to all the games. But he'd bring the towels home, and my mother had to wash them. And then Greg Malevy would stop by the next day and pick them up and bring them back down. And I was an usher there part-time then too. So that was fun.
Well, give me your best baseball memory.
Oh. I could remember when I was an usher, we're ushered in the grandstand on the first base side, and John Yakim was the owner at that time. And for some reason, I don't know what I did, but he saw that I wasn't watching some of the people who were coming into the stands and they were sneaking into the box seats. So after the game one day, he says, Jim, he says, I want to talk to you. Let me drive you home. So I got a little lecture from John about not letting people into the box seats. Yeah.
You're welcome into the box seats. This is the
right.
Jammers thing.
Right.
Terrific. Well, thank you.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Oh, I got one more.
I love this guy. This is the guy. Remember Ray didn't have anything. Nothing to say. I got nothing to say.
I was going to hop on to what Harry Olson said. He was talking about his family. This one. And Harry didn't mention it, but Harry's son gave my son a kidney here 3 years ago.
Oh, wow.
Yep. They'd gone through school together and were best men at each other's wedding, and were corresponded, but they didn't go to the same schools. But the story goes that Jim had a donor up there. He lives outside of Cortland and Homer. There was someone local who was there on the list, and it was a good friend of his. So you're not the guy, the recipient doesn't know who the prospective donor is. But this friend of his did call and say, I think I'm the one. Well, the guy went in for a final checkup like on a Tuesday, and he got turned down. Something was up. So about the next 2 or 3 days later, he gets a call from Bob Olson. Jim didn't know anything about this and said, Jim, I'm the guy. So they met then in Syracuse. We had a little party the night before at Jim's house before we went up for the operation. But it was the new surgeon from Princeton, a lady, who was doing it, and they doing all the matches. And she says, when she was checking all the blood work and everything, she says, I can't believe that you two, are you sure you're not brothers? Because everything matched that well. And both guys are doing terrific, right, Bob? Right.
What a great story.
So we're very thankful to the Olson family.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, thank you, Jim.
Thank you.